Stop doubting yourself and trust your dreams. Do not let others decide what is best for you. On this note, let's welcome Miss Saatvika on our show, StreeMing. We welcome you, Saatvika.
Thank you so much for having me.
So thank you so much, Saatvika, for joining us today. I would quickly give your introduction to our audience. So Saatvika is an independent production and stage manager for theatre and live events based in India. She is a graduate of MA in collaborative theatre production and design from Guildhall School of Music and Drama, London. She is the production and stage management mentor at Drama School, Mumbai. She has been senior stage manager for Disney Aladdin in India. And she has also been the Festival Director of Thespo for 2 years. And she has worked with QTP Entertainment Pvt Ltd as company stage manager for 3 years. We are so glad to have you with us today, Saatvika. Thank you for joining us. So, Saatvika, I would like to ask you first question. Please tell us about your journey of becoming a stage and production manager for theatre and events in India.
It actually started, I guess, how everyone's introduction into the theatre is quite by chance. So mine was the same. I was in school in grade 11. I was in a boarding school for my 11th and 12th, the Kodaikanal International School, and they had a drama program. And the friends that I had just made were going to work on the school play. And they said, why don't you come along? And I said, sure, that sounds like fun. I'll also work on the play. It was a production of a musical called Toad of Toad Hall. And I got a job as the costume dresser on the show. And it was really fun. So I said, okay, I want to work on another play again. And then I think I did something else in the costume department. And it just kind of went on from there, right? It was fun, so I did a little more. I got to hang out with my friends. So I did, another play. And then I went on to my undergrad. So I studied at SRCC in Delhi University, and I was doing economics there, but I was still wanting to pursue the theatre world. And I knew that I didn't want to be an actor. And I don't know why, but very early on, I was pretty sure that I didn't want to act. So I was directing plays in the College Dramatic Society. I used to also work with an amateur theatre group in Delhi. And as sort of my economics studying progressed, I realized that it was really not for me. It was a lot more maths than I wanted to do. I really disliked maths, and I didn't know that before I joined the course. So the more and more I went away from the economics, the more I went towards the theater. So it really, then I graduated from college and I knew that, okay, I definitely don't want to do economics, but I didn't know what next and what my options were or what I could do. Even if I wanted to pursue theater, I didn't know how I could make a career in it. So I decided to take a year off, and my parents were very supportive, and they said, okay, why don't you go and try a bunch of things? So I directed a play while I was in Delhi. I worked with a design firm doing some designing, because I was also, because of the theater, I also started doing like learning Photoshop and Illustrator to create the artwork for our plays. So then I got to use those skills, and I was illustrating some comic books. I worked with an economics think tank, and I did some research. And during that time, I landed with an internship at QTP, which is a theater company in Bombay. And so it was, again, by chance. I was chatting with Kwasar, who's the artistic director of the company. I had met him a couple of years ago for Thespo, where he had come to audition the play that I had directed in college. And we sort of stayed in touch, and he told me about a new play that he was directing in Bombay. And I mentioned that, I'm taking a year off and I want to explore more in the theater world, which is not acting. And he said, why don't you just send us your CV? So I sent it to him. And a couple of weeks later, I heard back from them and said, do you want to do an interview? Interview happened. They said, when can you move to Bombay? I said, give me 15 days. I'll pack my bags and I'll show up. So I didn't really know anyone in the city. I didn't really know anyone at QTP at all, right? But I just showed up. It was a 6-month internship that turned into 3 years with the company. And those 3 years were actually my 3 years of undergrad in the theater, because that's where I really discovered that, okay, this is what I want to do. This is the career that I want to build. That's where I discovered stage management, and then went on to production management and everything else. That's where I also then found the master's that I wanted to do, because I was interested in studying, of course, but my parents were very clear that do work in the theater if you want to, but once you're sure what you want to do pursue, a degree in it, because they are very focused on education. So then while I was at QTP, I also discovered the masters I wanted to do in theater, and then that's sort of how the story went on. But it all started with chance, and it all started with wanting to hang out with my friends.
That's so interesting journey you had.
Yeah.
A very thrilling one, though. So generally, we don't see girls taking up, production and stage management. So what led you to choose you? Sorry, what made you choose this role? And also being backstage, what you learned?
Interestingly, in the Bombay theatre circuit, you will notice that the stage managers and production managers are actually more women than men. But I think again, like I mentioned, I sort of discovered stage management, and the fact that I wanted to do it by chance. I was given the role at QTP. I was stage manager for a couple of plays. I did that for some events, and I really enjoyed it, which is why I wanted to do more of it. What I really like about stage management is that I guess that you're really in control of all the moving parts of the show. And I like being in control of things, I guess. So it enabled me to do that and sort of support all the different elements of the play, because you're the person who's sort of holding all the cogs in the wheel that keep running, right? So I think that's what I enjoyed. And then being a stage manager also means that you get to do multiple things. It's not just one thing that you do, right? You're managing your rehearsals, you might be working on lights, you might be working on sound, you might have to do a little bit of costume work. So I got to sort of explore my creativity in different fields as well. It wasn't just a logistical job. And I think there's multiple things I love about what I do, but yeah, this is some of it.
So, like you said, it was not just about logistical work, but you developed a lot of skills in theater when you were working as a stage manager, and you were overseeing the entire production, which people generally don't know about, and they just look at theater as a mode of entertainment, and people just act in theater. So that's a really great thing that you have just shared with us. So Saatvika, can you please tell us about your past projects, the productions that you have worked on, and what kind of challenges did you face in that process, and how did you overcome those challenges?
So every project comes with its own challenges, irrespective of the scale of the project. Everything that we do, there is always something, and I guess that is part of the excitement of working in the theater, is you never know what situation might come up. But I think the biggest challenge that I've had to deal with in scale is that I was the senior stage manager for Disney Aladdin when it happened in India a couple of years ago. So as senior stage manager, it was also the biggest project that I had worked on. So it's managing a show of that scale, where we had almost 100 crew members who are doing all of their multiple things, and ensuring that everyone is doing their job, and in allowing the actors and dancers and singers to do their jobs, so that day on day, by the time we ended the show, we had done 95 performances. So for 95 performances, to ensure that this is a magical experience for the audience members, that in a sense was my responsibility. So the biggest challenge that we faced one day was that there is a magic carpet in the show, and which is a very integral part of the movie, and therefore also of the play that we do. And it is a magical experience, right? Because when you watch it, you actually see a carpet flying in the sky. And during our regular, we used to have technical checks for all the elements before every performance. And one performance, while we were doing the technical check, the magic carpet just stopped working. And the audience was waiting outside, and we kept trying to, restart it and fix it. And, for something of this scale, we had a plan A, a plan B, a plan C, and we tried everything, but it was stuck. It wasn't that it was misbehaving, it was just not doing anything. And the audience was right outside, and we can't really delay the show, and we can't really have a magic carpet sequence in the performance. So what happened is that happens in the second act of the play, right? So we knew that we had about an hour, and then we had the interval, and then was when the audience would see it. So we said, okay, we're gonna move it out, and we're going to start the show. And some of the production team members then called the people who helped us build the magic carpet to try and problem solve during the first act. We then, as soon as interval hit, and again, interval can only be for 15 minutes. But as soon as the curtain went down, we went in and we tried to implement all of the things that they suggested that we do. It still didn't work. And then we said, all right, now what we're going to do is come up with an entirely new sequence that doesn't involve any machinery. So the director was there and the actors were there and the stage crew was there. And so while on stage, we re-choreographed a new sequence. Then I went in and told the other departments, because you have your sound, light, video, special effects, your stage crew, the other actors and dancers and everything, all of those moving parts. And everything is to music, the actors are singing live, and the show has to keep going, right? So what happens before it, what happens after it? So we came up with it really quickly. Then I went off and informed everyone that this is what we're roughly going to do. Just stay with me while we keep doing it, and I will keep calling the cues and we will keep going. And it happened. The audience clapped at the end of it, as they always do, even when there's a real carpet flying, and none the wiser, right? The people who saw this show didn't really know that there was something else that was supposed to happen. And it was because then all of these 100 people came together in that one moment and made this last minute magic happen. So that was one of the most challenging experiences that I've had, but also one of the most gratifying, right? I think this is also why we do the theater, is because of special moments like this, which you couldn't really have planned for, but then when all of these things come together and creates another beautiful moment, which is special for the audience and the crew. This is one of the things I love about it.
Yeah, that's the beauty of theater, improvisation and creativity, and everyone comes together. And now I want to clap for you. I haven't seen the performance, but it seems like, oh my God, this is a story. Good. So what has been your favorite play, the one you enjoyed managing the most, and why?
That is actually a hard question to answer, because I like every single play for a very different reason. I am lucky enough that I get to choose my projects. So every time I do choose a project, it's for a different reason. One, generally it'll be that it is also about where can I contribute my skills really well, and also what am I going to get to learn in this project that I take up. So what will be challenging for me, where will I get to learn and grow, and also then to see how I can contribute. So this is a particular skill of mine that will be very useful. So let me go and work on this. And then of course also what the content of the show is. Like I like working on plays that comment on the world we live in. I like working on plays that maybe we might be performing in an unconventional venue, and throw up a challenge like that. So it really, like, every different play has been special for a different reason. So for example, there is a play that QTP used to do called So Many Socks, which was about 3 generations of Tibetan refugees living in India. And that play was special because of the story it was telling, the form that it chose. And the most special experience for me was that we got to perform it in Dharamsala and McLeodganj for the Tibetan community. And the way that the community responded to it, the amount of love that was thrown on the production was amazing. Aladdin, of course, I love for the production that it was and the scale that it was, and also to run a production for 95 shows has its own challenges, right? When we usually do shows in India, we don't really do a full month of shows. We don't do shows for 8 days, 8 shows a week, 6 days a week. We don't get to do things like that. So to be able to experience something on that scale for that sort of consistency, again, was special. Recently, we had done, I say recently, but I have to remind myself, this was 2019, right? Because the last 2 years have sort of just blown past us. But we had done a production, Akvarious Productions had done a production of the Kite Runner, which is a beautiful story. And the way that we presented it on stage was also beautiful. And then every single time we did it, we had houseful shows. And we were really worried when we were bringing it to an audience, because a book loving audience can be so polarizing. And we said, okay, there's people who are going to show up and say, oh, we hated what you did with the book and we loved the book and you ruined it for us, but everyone loved it. And so that is special for that reason. So these are a couple of plays that I can think of the top of my head.
So, that's the beauty of theater, but in India, the scenario is that people don't talk about what happens behind the stage. They don't know about it. And, there is like a process, there is education in this field. Nobody talks about it. People just know that, okay, it happens on stage, it looks beautiful. They watch the play and they come back home. So that's it. But we know that, we have a lot of things that are going on to create that beautiful play. So I would like to ask you, what guidance and suggestions would you like to give to those who are interested in doing theater aspirants, and those who have been interested in doing the stage and production management, since you have done your education from London and now you are in India and you are working in India in this particular field. So what would you like to tell us about the career prospect in theater and stage and production management?
So actually, I would like to point out that the awareness of the production and technical aspects of theatre production has been increasing generally. I speak, of course, from my very little niche bubble, which is the Bombay theatre circuit, and in that I have a even smaller bubble, which is the English theatre circuit. That's the world that I live in. So I can, of course, speak from this experience. But there has been increasing awareness of who a stage manager is, who a production manager is, what would the role of a producer be, other than just sort of footing the money for a play. What could your how do you involve your light and sound designer and costume designer into a more collaborative process, and not just the director being a sort of dictatorial role who's just telling everyone else what to do and all the other people are just following orders. That has changed. There is more awareness, but the training opportunities are, of course, limited. Everyone that I know has learned on the job, including myself. Like I mentioned, the work that I did at QTP was really my theater training. That's where I learned what a stage manager is, what a production manager is, what are the things that I need to do. And all of that held me in good stead when I went to London for my master's. I didn't have an undergrad degree. I was working in a sort of international context where there were people who had degrees in the theater and I didn't, but I was never at a disadvantage because I didn't have that, because I learned all of that from my work. And I was actually, in a way, I had an advantage because I had real life, experience and not just bookish knowledge or school knowledge. But things are trying to change over here. The NCPA in Bombay, the National Centre for Performing Arts, started and recently published a study called The Art of the Possible, where they commissioned the Artex company to do a research about the level of skill training and the gaps in skill building in the theatre production and technical fields in India. Which was recently published and is available to the public to read and comment on. So that really shows how many people, based on, of course, the people who responded to the survey and the interviews that they did, but it tells you what people's interests are, what their passion is, why is it that people show up to work every day, what are the problems and challenges we face in training. So, access to quality education, or not knowing what your job prospect is. Like, you asked me, what are the prospects for someone who works in this field? We don't really have a sort of linear career graph. You don't have promotions. You don't really know what the next step is. All of us, because we're, of course, trying to make ends meet, again, because there's no government funding, there isn't any real support. Everyone is doing it because of the passion. So then in a sector which is considered an informal community, not even really a formalized sector, how do you find yourself in here? What is it that you could do? How could you make money? If you wanted to gain training, what is it that you would like to learn? Or what is it that, how much time would you be willing to give? Why haven't you taken up those opportunities? And things like that are presented in the study. So I would actually recommend that people go read this study that's available online. And then I would also suggest that for someone who's interested in this field, watching plays really is the best way to understand more about the theatre. The more you watch, the more you will understand what you like and you don't like. You will start noticing aspects of the production. Another great thing for young people is Thespo, which is the festival that I worked on. And so many other people who work in the theater would have worked on Thespo at some point in their lives. So it is a festival that is for people who are 25 and below. It is run entirely by people who are 25 and below. It is for those people. So all the plays that are selected are also done by young people, and they are, until 2019, they were the best of youth theater that was selected from everything that auditioned. And this was like in 2019, I think there were over, like, I don't remember exactly, but I think like over 200 plays audition. And the best of that would then get put together into a festival at the Prithvi Theatre in Bombay in December. And that really is the best training ground for anyone interested in any aspect of theatre, not just stage management and production management, but they also have workshops where you can learn about light design, sound design, acting if you want to, and all of these aspects. If you're working on a play, then you get to work on a play on the Prithvi stage, and that's a dream, right? Like, you don't get to perform at Prithvi every day. You get the support of much more experienced mentors to help you through that process. And if you're interested in volunteering for the festival, then, you know, there's so many more aspects. You could be working on social media, you could be working on other aspects of marketing or design. So it's really the best training ground. You can sort of put your hands into all the little pots and experience what you want. So that would be the best thing that I can recommend to any young person who's interested in theatre.
That's really helpful. So what are your future prospects, and how do you want to contribute towards growth in field of production and stage management in theatre?
So like I mentioned just now, that it's not, the future prospects aren't very clear, right? There are multiple paths that you can take. Even for the people that I have learned from, everyone has taken a different journey to get to where they are. And that's, I think that's one of the things I like about the theatre, that it isn't a set sort of defined thing that I need to do. If something else catches my interest, I can very well learn that new skill and go do that thing. But having said that, for example, I now work as the producer for Akvarious Productions, which is a theatre company that's based in Bombay. The company is 21 years old and has now produced, in March, we opened our 72nd play. So I am working with that company, getting to produce shows. I also am interested in, because I have had the experience of training, I do believe that some amount of training is helpful, is useful for people. So wherever possible, I do try to do workshops or trainings. So that also, like, I used to do that with drama school. I work on other projects with them. I am involved with the NCPA with the Art of the Possible research that they just did. So the research was conducted last year. They're hoping to use all of that information and also develop a training program in the near future. So I'm hoping to be associated with that. So with the opportunities that I have to work on plays as a producer or a production manager, I get to, you know, be there, create the art, but then also I have this aspect which is giving back. I think giving back to the community and giving back to other people who might be interested in the training that I share.
So that's a beautiful thing that you just mentioned, that you want to give back to the community. I think that's the whole meaning of living your passion and making it your purpose. So that's really nice. And Saatvika, you have beautifully explained us the process of theatre and the beauty of the process that happens behind the stage and what is not just on stage, because that actually makes, you know, the final production beautiful. Whatever happens behind the stage actually makes it happen. So what people get to see just for a few minutes and few hours. So thank you for you know, telling us about that process and sharing your experience in this particular field. So one last thing that I would like to ask you, what is that one thing that keeps you going on, and no matter what, one value that you would like to hold on to your entire life?
One thing in the theater that keeps me going, I think it would, sorry?
In your life or in theater, anything.
So the one thing in the theater that really keeps me going is the fact that it is a live performance art, and that because of the nature of the fact that it's live, it's also very transient. Like I mentioned with the Aladdin example, that one particular performance will never be recreated for anyone else, right? So the theater is sort of a beautiful mix between being very, very, very prepared, and having all of your plans in place and having your Excel sheets sorted out and your division of work all done very clearly, and then also fully being prepared to change things on the fly. But then doing all of that to create the best possible experience for an audience. So that's what really, like, sort of that striving for excellence in this sort of world where you can't really set everything for sure. You can, but then things might change. And even when they do change, you still have to try and be as excellent as possible. And that's what really keeps me going day after day.
And we wish you the best, that you keep going on in this field and, you know, keep making more memories and more beautiful productions. And we
Thank
are
you.
really thankful, Saatvika, that you connected with us today and shared your beautiful experience in this particular field. I would like to just conclude this session by saying one of the beautiful effects of living your passion is that it inspires other people to live theirs. So thank you, Saatvika, for reminding us that we should follow our passion. Thank you for inspiring us. And we are really glad that you spoke to us today. Thank you once again.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Saatvika.
much for having me. It was my pleasure.